It's setting. I know it's setting up. It's setting up. It's setting. And here we go. It's always really interesting when this happens. It says it is live streaming, and I'm going to just double check that it's actually happening, but we're just going to take it at face value that it's happening. It's always really, there it is. Okay, I see it. We made it.
Nice.
We made it. So this is a first for us to do a live kind of interview and back and forth on our Facebook Live. Adam, I don't know if you knew that I hop on here every Friday to like share whatever our team is learning, what I'm learning, what I'm reading. Basically share what we're loving on for the brain and all things neuro, and share it with other therapists and people, just to get the word out about brain recovery and brain health. So I can remember even early on when you and I met, I was like, we got to share your story because you've had a really great story and you have a message too of hope for people because you have been really hopeful through this process. So it's actually happening. We're here and we're sharing your story. So I'm really excited. If people haven't met me, I'm Julie Hirschberg, owner of Re+active Therapy and Wellness in the LA area. And I'll have Adam introduce himself, but we met a few months ago when Adam contacted me looking for therapy for 3PD. And Adam, I really want you to share your story, maybe starting with that journey to diagnosis. Like what happened at the initial onset of this, and how did you go about getting diagnosed?
Sure, yeah. So it was in June or July. I mean, remembering back, like leading up to it, I was kind of, as the, watching the numbers of the pandemic and the coronavirus and stuff, my anxiety was starting to kind of peak towards the end of June. And then in July, I think what happened is in June, the numbers were kind of down. So, I was hearing word about if you have any elective kind of medical procedures that you want to schedule, go for it. Don't be, scared to go through with that. And I'd had this one that I'd been wanting to do. So I scheduled my first colonoscopy in June. Woohoo!
Yay! Everybody's favorite thing.
Right. Yeah. So in retrospect, I don't know. It's just not the kind of thing that mixed so well with the anxiety. But so I scheduled it in June when the numbers were kind of chill, and then it kind of like another surge happened in the week or so leading up to it. So I was, starting to kind of tweak out a bit. I mean, I live here with my cats. I've just been kind of hunkered down through this whole thing. So it's very easy to get into a headspace of being sort of isolated and whatnot. But what happened is I went through the procedure. I went ahead and did it, and I got some pretty heavy sedation. So I got a benzo and a opioid at the same time, I didn't ever, coming out of it, it just took me a couple of days. I even remember telling people like, wow, I'm just not feeling like I'm letting go of this sedation. Like I feel like I'm kind of still sedated. And then finally on the third day, I decided to try a workout. So I was like, I think I'm feeling better enough to work out. And I did a workout. I did about a 20-minute HIIT thing. And then I did some pull-ups. And during the workout, I remember looking down and just feeling really off, like disconnected from my body, and like almost like I was like a mile away looking down at my body, and just feeling off. And then I kind of couldn't shake that feeling. I took a shower after I worked out, and then I started thinking about, oh my God, like what if something happened to my colonoscopy? And like, something's going on and I feel off, and maybe my, I heard about 1% of colonoscopies can go bad or something. So I started thinking about, all the things that could be going wrong. And in the shower, I was like, oh my God, I'm about to die. And so I kind of like got up on this panic, like spiral. And then I started getting really lightheaded, like I was going to faint. And then the more lightheaded I got, the more panicked I got. And then it just like, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to drive myself to the ER because I'm about to like die, basically. And so I went to the ER, they did a bunch of tests. Everything looked good. They said I was a little dehydrated. So immediately from the bat, there was this real disconnect of what doctors were telling me, like, everything's fine, your blood work is fine, EKG was fine, everything looked normal, and yet I felt so off. Like, I just felt there's this swimming sensation in my head. I mean, it was like the strangest thing, honestly, that I'd ever experienced in terms of a sensation. So so then I immediately just kind of stayed on it. I was talking to the guy who gave me the procedure, and he was saying he had never experienced it. He had no idea what it was. And so it just started this sort of long chain of doctors telling me, you're fine, we don't know what's wrong with you. And I went to literally every specialist you could see. I saw a cardiologist, I saw an ENT to see if it was dizziness from maybe an inner ear thing. I saw, of course, a neurologist, and he asked me to get a brain MRI. I got a brain MRI. Everything was perfect with that. And I went up to Utah and did all this up in Utah while staying with my brother. And yeah, it was just that first 2 months before I really knew what it was really strange, because I felt so weird, and everybody was telling me I was perfectly fine.
Yeah. And that's a really common story, right? I know you've connected with other people who have had something like this, and to go to doctor after doctor and like, everything's fine, tests are fine, and you're feeling terrible.
Yeah.
You're really dizzy. And what were some of the symptoms how would you describe those at that time?
Yeah. So dizziness and lightheadedness was the main one, but then other things started happening. Like I would feel shooting pains in my chest, and my legs felt really disconnected, and almost like I would feel weird pins and needles in my legs. And fatigue, a lot of fatigue. So just not able to kind of get up and do the things that I wanted to do. Brain fog is really the biggest thing that I was describing it as first, was brain fog. It was just like this real thick cotton wool feeling in my brain. And then a real disconnected with my environment kind of feeling, like a real unsettled swimming sensation. And I wouldn't even say dizziness, because it's not like the room was spinning. It was just oh, this is the way I've described it the best, I think, is like you put on prescription glasses, but it's the wrong prescription. And one of the eyes is like way off of the other, if you've ever done that. And, but it's not glasses. You can't take it off. It's like
right
in your head. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's a good description. And what, like, a scary time too, to be in a pandemic. And I loved how you described it. I mean, don't we all have those shower moments where it's just like everything feels so overwhelming? But this is also very common that there's some sort of, especially with 3PD and dizziness, chronic dizziness, that there's some sort of onset. And you had an onset. You had these strong sedatives. You had a procedure. You maybe got dehydrated, maybe got that, like, where your blood pressure might have dropped a bit, right, with exercising, and then you're in the shower, dehydrated. There's a accumulation of things that happen, in addition to like some panic, because those things were happening, so it's often not one thing, but an accumulation of things. And I remember you describing that so articulately, as you did today, of the series of things, and then like a cascade of events. And by the time you found us, it was really that kind of visual sensitivity and feeling kind of like you were moving or you were off balance. That was kind of where we started, which was that about 3 months?
I want to say it was like 2.5 months. So I finally got the PPPD diagnosis on week 7. And,
Okay.
I remember the moment in Utah when when it kind of things started to turn for the better was when I read about PPPD online, and I was like, oh my God, this is what I have.
Oh.
And so I got a referral to a really top neurologist, and Dr. Balo, and I didn't tell him that I thought it was PPPD because I wanted to see if that's where we would end up. Just not kind of give it to him, but like let him do his test. And he took me through his whole little routine, and then he said, there's a name for this: persistent postural perceptual dizziness. And I was like, bingo. And honestly, it's funny, just that made me start to feel better. Just not getting out of the mode of, oh my God, what do I have? I'm about to die. Like automatically I started feeling better. And then that was when I started researching, okay, now that I know for sure what I have, who can I talk to and get treatment? And you were one of the first people I found online. And I was like, cool, she's local. She knows what PPPD is. And she looks awesome. So I'm going to, that was when I called you up. So Dr. Balo, that was about week 7. So it must have been like 8 or 9 weeks that I got in touch with you, like right around
Yeah. Yeah. Which it was like, most people, this is years of symptoms before they get there. So I feel like right away, you're so lucky. And even the technical criteria for 3PD is like 3 months of this happening, right? And,
Which is interesting that he gave me the diagnosis so early, but I think it was just so dead on. Like every question he asked, it was so obvious that that's what was going on with him.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you met all of the diagnostic criteria aside from time. So why wait another month to make sure that you had it? And you were just so proactive. You came in and we chatted on the phone and you already knew so much, knew very clearly some of the things that were triggering you, which I loved. You could give me very specifically, like, I was peeling an orange the other day. I don't know if you remember telling me that, but it was like up close, and that was really triggering. Can you remember a little bit? Can you tell us about some of where you were when we first started, like those things that were hard, the visual piece that was hard?
Yeah. So when we first started, I finally got to the point where I was starting to pick it apart and say, oh, okay, this isn't just this general overwhelming feeling. This actually has components, and I can actually say, oh, okay, when this happens, then it gets worse. And so at that time, I was really noticing the visual, like I would feel okay, and then I would sit down at the computer to work or something, and then it would be like, oh, I just get this really overwhelming, like cotton feeling in my head, and the space thing, like with the orange, it was just such a simple task, was so overwhelming to do. And I was looking at the orange, and it's hard to explain, but it's like, normally you're like, okay, there's the object, there's the orange. But with me, it was like, okay, what distance is the orange from me? I can't tell if it's a mile away or like right close. And it like took energy to like focus on it, because I just wasn't oriented in space. It was just bizarre. It's really like that feeling if you have really bad prescription glasses and you can't tell how close or far things are. And, so that's really what was, I think the 2 things that I was really clear about when I started with you were that anxiety. So if I would have a situation at work or something that would bring up some anxiousness, then it would be like, oh, okay, I get all the symptoms start to come on. And then visually, so if I'll be feeling fine and I won't even have anxiety, I won't be anxious, and I'll go out for a drive and I'm at an intersection and there's cars going by like, and then I start to feel really heavy in my head. So what had up to that point really just felt general, like in general, feeling overwhelmed by all this stuff. I started to say, okay, this causes it and this makes it feel better. And that was pretty much where I was starting to get to when we started working together.
Yeah. I mean, you were already like halfway down your recovery to me at that point, because you're already figuring it out. And I just remember meeting you and going, wow, like that insight to recognize like this particular visual stimulation is throwing me off. And I recognize this anxiety piece that can really make the dizziness worse. And I know it wasn't like spinning dizziness, but that overall, I think you said cotton in your head. You've got really good words to describe this, but the cotton in the head, feeling off, all of those things were very, very clear to you. And when we go through and teach therapists about 3PD, we talk about this like pie chart. And literally you came to me and said, well, you didn't say use the word pie chart, but it was like you were describing, I know there's this like anxiety piece, which often has the autonomic overlay, which was part of the triggering event too. So, and then you said, and there's this visual, it's like, and I think you said something to me, it's like, I'm taking in like way too much visual information. Like I look at something and it's like, it kind of like the orange and you can't judge the distance, but it's also like hyper aware, hyper attuned.
Yeah.
Which is like often how I describe it to people. So you were describing to me like what I often describe to people. So it was just really, really an eloquent way to put it. So you were describing the visual piece, you're describing anxiety. And then when we started together, we could also find a couple of like actual physical limitations that were probably contributing to it. So remember the eye movement piece.
Right.
That was like really triggering, but also slightly impaired. And then we did the laser, which I know your cats love. So we could see too that maybe there was a piece of the neck proprioception that was not the like biggest thing, but it was just a contributor. So that's another thing we often teach therapists is like, we can't just go to one, we have to make sure all of the pieces of the pie are addressed. And that was what we actually did first. We started with the laser, and some of the eye movement pieces that were very small. I remember, and quite quickly that cleared up. Like the next time I saw you, it was like 100% better, but also you are like a dynamo of practicing. I've never met anybody like you, Adam. So just really, really, you were committed to the practice of it, which I think is why you've gotten so far. So we kind of addressed that first, and then went in to address those bigger pieces of the pie, which were more the autonomic anxiety piece and the visual sensitization. Now, I also have not met somebody with such a great practice, like ingrained from like an autonomic grounding. So when we started talking grounding and breath, like you could access that so quickly. What do you think it's been? What are some of your things that you had already been practicing and what you have in your daily practice now? What do you think has been a real strong point? And what might you recommend for other people who might have this to try?
Sure. Yeah. Well, definitely yoga. I mean, I've been practicing yoga since 2006. I think that really laid a good foundation. I mean, I'm really lucky. I feel very fortunate that I have that already in place. The breathing, definitely when you told me about doing the deep breathing, that was already something that was pretty familiar to me. And then I was really surprised how effective that was at making this feel better. And I think, to me, that's a big piece is like, because I struggle with it. I know other people must be struggling with it as well, is really believing that doing these exercises can actually make a difference. I mean, even though obviously I trusted you when we started and stuff, but it's always like, you're just skeptical and you're like, is this really going to help, bouncing a ball off the wall? How's that going to help this feel better, but definitely the yoga and the, I do martial arts as well. And there's something about, I started trying to do it again in Utah. At first, I thought actually doing that stuff might have been causing it because when it first happened was right after a workout. So I was very sketched out about working out for a while. And I was like, I don't know if this is a heart problem. And if I go too hard, I'm just going to like keel over or something. But once I realized, oh no, it's actually like I can do it. I mean, it's very uncomfortable to do yoga or train martial arts at first, and it made me more dizzy at first. But slowly I started realizing that, okay, not necessarily right after, but the next day after I do yoga or martial arts, I feel like 10 times better.
Mm.
So, I do have those practices I've been doing for a long time, but even if I didn't have those practices, anything I think what I would recommend to people that gets you breathing and connects the breath with your movement and lets you kind of center in your body and then do stuff that's really right, left, right kind of coordination. And it doesn't have to be complicated, but just anything like simple boxing moves or, cardio like yoga size or Pilates or whatever. I mean, there's like a million things out there, but I think a lot of that whole body, mind, spirit practice has really been a godsend. I mean, it's just, I think, been one of the single things that has brought me to where I'm now, which is probably about 80 to 90%.
Yeah. I think you were able to tap into it. So it was, we could kind of incorporate those concepts into your program.
Mm-hmm.
You knew how to do a deep breath, and then we just added extended exhale. And then we could move into those visually sensitive activities, but always come back down. And one of the things that I remember that you said is like, oh, that gave me a lot of control,
Mm-hmm.
where you had really felt like zero control, which is how most people feel when they're dizzy, is like no control at all. And that is, I often tell therapists, if you don't start with that, where like if you just start with dizzy, and you give no tools for the control, you actually really set the brain up for neuroplasticity gone awry the other way, like not in the recovery way. So it was great. You had great access to that. Then we could start, and we started with ball on the wall and laser and things like that. You got really good at the ball punching.
I guess
That
it's
was more,
relative. I don't feel like I'm good at it, but it's
I don't know. The
definitely
first time you did it, it was like you could get two, and now I
right.
can see you get a bunch of them. That was a little more advanced, but we had ways to add in that um, visual stimulus that were went from less to more,
Right.
for sure. But in between doing the grounding every time. So it's like your symptoms could go up, but you could bring them back down. And when your brain experiences that ability to control it, it's like, just endorphins galore. It's like such a
Totally.
great brain feeling. So I know that's where we started. And then what else worked so well for you was the adding weight to
Oh
things.
yeah. Oh yeah, that was a huge thing. And you said, have you ever tried doing anything with weights? And then you gave me those weight, I guess it was maybe ankle weights or something that laid, and it instantly felt better. And then I think we were doing maybe the laser in the office, and it actually improved my performance at guiding the laser with my neck. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's just curiouser kind of,
Yes. And I find that a lot. And that was really moving into the part of trying to re-weight your sensory system. Here your brain was overweighting, over analyzing, and taking in too much visual and not relying on all the great sensory information you have coming, especially because of your martial arts and your yoga background, and just generally being a very active and like a person that likes the physical too, as a
Mhm.
musician, as like really loving to drive a good car, like
Yeah.
all of those things. When you told me those things, they were like clues too, of like, ooh, we need to tap into that. And I think we were like, here's your therapy, you need to drive that car. And, uh,
My favorite homework in the world. That's great.
yes. So reconnecting to that, like grounding and using the sensory system. We did all kinds of crazy things with your eyes closed and all kinds of balance things to really reinforce your brain that your sensory system is amazing. In fact, it's like probably top 1% of all people your age, and it just wasn't using it well. And it was using the other systems much more. And now I see that that's the balance is starting to come back there. Because it sounds like where it once was really challenging to peel an orange you can peel an orange.
Oh yeah.
Um,
You think about it now, it's like, ooh.
yeah, yeah. What other things, where else do you notice you've had a big improvement?
Honestly, now a lot of things that I used to do before, mainly like mechanical, technical things that are close up, like dealing with maybe some of my pedal board and my guitar stuff, used to be really, really overwhelming to do. And I'm able to do it, and it happens. I do it, and then I'm like, oh, okay, that didn't even phase me. I realized after the fact that that's something that would have phased me 2 months ago. It would have been really difficult, but now it's no problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. And even one of the earliest signs was that you could work at the computer much easier. And I
Yeah.
know we had instituted that like kind of grounding 2 minutes every 2 hours initially, even with the work and all the screen stuff. We went from, I remember the first time we did the umbrella
Oh yeah.
moving, and it was like you could barely sit up straight. And then I mean, now I think you're at shaky cam videos,
Yeah.
which are for most people really, really like turn people's stomachs. So, I mean, you went from very, very basic visual stimulus to right now you're at that pretty intense stimulus, right? So shaky cam or driving at night, like kind of high contrast lights.
Really high contrast lights is something that's still really, those are like the two visual things that really, so if it's a really dark room and there's some kind of like fluorescent light, it's like,
yeah, yeah. So that's kind of the final frontier, because you're back to driving. You can handle the traffic going by. You're walking, and I think actually hiking was difficult initially too, right? And hiking's better as well. Yeah. And now those things can be really grounding, as instead of really off-putting to your whole system. So and then I'll never forget the day you sent me pictures of Fry's. You went to Fry's to go shopping, which is like the ultimate visual stimulation.
Yeah. With and all the shiny floor and all the aisles of.
Yeah, exactly. So really great progress moving from kind of not being able to do any of that to some of it, and now kind of in the final frontier of the really high level pieces. So I think
aroma. So I think a lot of
oh yes,
a big breakthrough was when I was at your office, and you showed me that sort of diagram that had like the river, and it was like, okay, you've got it's almost like you've got your things that fill you up, and you've got your things that trigger it. So there's kind of like the two categories. And when I started realizing, okay, I can balance those every day. And then when I realized also every sense other than visual seems to help. So if I connect to anything, whether it's touch, feeling grounded, having weights on me, or sense of smell, I got these aroma kind of like essential oils, and started carrying a little thing of peppermint around with me. And that's one of my biggest go-tos now. If I'm at the computer and I'm working long hours and I start to feel symptoms coming on, I'll just kind of take a big whiff of the peppermint, and it's immediately, I feel better.
And you know what, honestly, you taught me that one, because you were putting it in your mask. Like, and you said, oh yeah, I could just put it in the mask. And I was like, that is a great idea. And now I started recommending that to everybody. Because you're right. Again, the brain is weighting sensations. And when it's overweighting the visual, we can help it out by like grounding and weighting the sensory system. And peppermint's a really nice smell too. So peppermint, and for the sense of smell. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was a really great thing that I learned from you, and is really helpful when you're wearing a mask all day, because you could just put that right in there if you're out and about. So yeah, that's great. Adam, I think this is really going to be helpful for other people who may have really been suffering for a while, for a very long time, with dizziness. And one of the things I will say is, again, you found this quick, got diagnosed quick, got specialists. We worked together for 5 sessions or so, not even a lot of therapy. And you've really taken it on as your own and keep making that progress. on your own, which I think is great. If this had been 10 years, it would probably take us longer, right, to get here. So I kind of want to give that disclaimer, is like, results might not be typical, right, because you've had it for a shorter amount of time. But also, I think you have really committed to this practice and to to learning things yourself, which is, I've really just loved working with you with that. But as we wrap up here, I know you also feel very hopeful for other people. And I'm just curious what you might share for somebody who's really kind of feeling stuck in their dizziness, or like maybe they can't ever make improvements.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's the biggest thing that I would want to share, is that you can, and really as much as you can, put yourself into that driver's seat. And I still have moments, like the other night I was asleep, and I was experiencing like the sensation when I was asleep, and I had the fear. I realized my biggest base fear was if I'll never feel normal again. And that's like, I think I don't know, can't speak for everybody. I don't know what they're experiencing, but for me, I think that's the biggest fear at the bottom of it. And then I do some practices, and then I realize, okay, I do feel better. And I've actually had days here and there. I've had probably 3 days total so far since it started where I totally felt normal. And then something would happen and I'd trigger it. But I would say just what I want to leave people with is just relax. This is part of the human condition. I think it's pretty common, actually. I was surprised to find out it's actually very common, even though the doctors don't know anything about it in general. It's very common. And you got this. I mean, just get in the driver's seat, be in action, do the exercises, notice that you do feel better when you do the exercises. And just, for me, it was making a list. Okay, these things make me feel worse. These things make me feel better. And then I have control over for the most part, what I can do and what I'm exposed to and stuff. And so there's definite, it's an opportunity to learn how your own brain works. And honestly, it's a neuroplasticity, which I'm learning all about through this, is something that then you can take into anything. Like if you say you're into martial arts or yoga or whatever, that's the same stuff that's going to make you better at that. It's all neuroplasticity, right?
Yeah, that's great. What a great summary of that. And I love how you had brought in that river analogy. I love that one so much. But you have come away very empowered to know yourself and to know your brain and your body, which I think is great, because that's going to take you really, really far. Not just with this, but with everything. So I really love that about you, and have loved being able to share this with other people. So I thank you for your courage too. That's not an easy thing to do. So thank you for being able to share this with other people, and that we hope other people can also find some inspiration and hope through your story.
Yeah, hope so.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Adam. I'm going to hit end on here, and we will touch base again soon.
All right. Thank you. Good
talk.
talk.
All right. Bye.